Alright guys, welcome back to another video. Today I wanted to talk about the importance of checking your chain to make sure it's still good to ride on or whether or not you need to replace it. Chain maintenance is a whole nother subject, but these are 3 checks that are going to allow you to know whether or not your chain health is no good or whether or not you're good to go for a little bit longer. So here's the thing with chains, okay? On top of motor maintenance, chains and drive maintenance is of the utmost importance. The last thing that you want to be doing is going up a jump face and have a chain break and it's see you later. You know what I mean? It's a bad deal. So we're going to go over 3 ways to check your chain. These are 3 methods that I use, and I don't know another way or a better way to go about doing it. So hopefully after this video you guys can go out, check your chain, and make the decision for yourself whether or not you've rode on it for too long or whether or not you're good to go for a little bit longer. So let's hop right into it. Alright guys, so right here on the table I've got 2 types of chains. First chain is your standard 520 chain. So 520 is referring to the size of chain obviously, but right here would be your standard 520 chain. Now this chain over here is also a 520 chain, but it is an O-ring style chain. To break it down for you in 2 different ways. Really quick, I'll show you the difference here. This is the link on a standard 520 chain. You can see there are no O-rings between the outer link, inner link, I guess is what I'm trying to say. You can see it's basically metal to metal contact. So these chains tend to wear so much quicker than your regular O-ring chain, which the majority of people run O-ring chains. Hardly anybody runs these standard chains anymore. So next we have our regular O-ring chain. As you can see here, this chain seems to be a little bit wider. This chain is obviously very dirty. It's wore out. It is garbage. Both of these chains are both wore out. So I'm using these as great examples to describe the difference. Not only the difference, but to describe what to look for in both chains to, figure out whether or not it's time to replace yours. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about two different ways to tell whether or not your chain is bad. Both of these ways will give you a very, very accurate depiction of your chain health and how things are going. And not only that, but your chain, when it wears out, will start to sound and start to feel very loose. It will be very chattery. But anyways, the first thing I usually check for right away when I have a bad chain is my chain flexible? Is it flexible? As you can see here, this chain is still very flexible. It doesn't hang up, it doesn't seize up. That means it's been lubricated well and it still has life in it as far as flexibility goes. Now that does not mean the chain is good by any means, but that is a great sign. Now on this other chain, you can see right here, it also tends to be very flexible. But one thing about this chain is, I call it self-correction on it. This one does not self-correct. You can see right there, it's got humps in it. I literally have to smash it down in order to get it to recover back to normal. See that? See how it's holding a ridge there? You don't want that. You don't want your chains to hold ridges in them like that. So now an O-ring chain is going to be stiffer than your regular 520 chain anyway, but still what you don't want is you don't want to be able to have your chain sitting there and have these kinks in it like it has right here. You do not want that. That's a bad sign. The next thing to look for is your side-to-side play, okay? So here we have the chain. Well, let's see. Let me get you focus here a little bit better. So here we have the chain laying flat on its side, right? So now, how much can I pick up on this chain before the whole thing turns into a U-shape? Okay, you can see there, look at how bowed this chain gets. I can literally just slack it side to side, no problem. So you can only imagine what it's doing on the bike if it moves that much. Now, we're talking about 10 links right here. And if you look at this, look at that play with only 10 links. You can even hear it. Don't know if it shows up in video or not, but you can hear that. That is no bueno, no good. So, the chain has nice play like this, almost too much actually, and it has even more play like this. We don't like this. This is bad. It's bad juju. So, this chain is trashed, okay? These are two ways to tell without getting out the manual and doing it the way that Honda, Yamaha, any of these companies tell us. Now this chain, look at it here. It has a little bit of flex. Nothing crazy, just a little bit of flex. So it's not near as bad, but it's still not good. So both of these chains are old chains that I ran that are no longer useful. So the next thing I'm going to show you is basically your ultimate tattletale that you need a new chain. Again, both of these chains, honestly, I could probably clean them up really well, and I could probably lubricate them really well and throw them on the bike, set the tension on them, and your average guy could walk up to it and be like, oh man, that chain looks great, it looks brand new. But it's not the case. So do not be deceived by how good the chain looks, or how, you know, like I said, we want this, but we don't want it to be sloppy. You can hear it rattling. So, okay, now let me show you what the manual says. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is the length of your chain and how much it stretches over time. Now I've got these white dots here, as you can see on the chain. So you got one over here at the 29-inch mark, and some over here at the 20-inch mark. So this is just for reference. But basically what happens is over time when you ride, your links will begin to stretch and stretch and stretch. And over time, what that does is that takes your chain link and lengthens it out, and your sprocket doesn't lengthen out. Your sprocket will not widen with your chain, right? So what happens is now you're creating excessive wear on your rear sprocket and your front sprocket. So over time, that's what eats your sprockets up. Loose chain and also a stretch chain will eat your sprockets up. So as you can imagine, as this chain rolls around the sprocket, it fits perfectly in those grooves. Now if your chain is too long, the sprocket doesn't change. What's going to happen is it's not going to slip into those grooves completely, and it's going to wear out the teeth and make them sharp. So you've got a loose chain that can cause a sharp sprocket, and then you've also got a wore out chain. So, and typically it's both at the same time as you're riding your bike a lot. So here, this is according to Yamaha now because I have their manual, but in 15 links, the length of 15 links of chain, you're supposed to be under 9.5 inches. So basically what that means is when we put those white dots on here, that's 15 total links in this chain. We need to measure from the 20 to, what is that, 29. We're just under 29 and a half, just barely. Now what you're seeing here, the bottom chain is your standard chain. The top one is your O-ring chain. Like I said, the O-ring chain has more hours on it than the standard, but if you look here, and you guys can tell just a little bit on camera, if you look here, your bottom chain is actually longer than your top chain, and it's got less hours on it. Ultimately, both of these chains are within spec according to Yamaha. Both of these chains are actually not wore out, but they are right on the edge. We're talking 9 and 7/16 right there on the bottom of that, on that bottom chain, the standard chain, and then we're probably about what is that, 9 and 3/8 probably. So they're both stretched, but the bottom chain is longer. Now again, we talked about the O-ring chains having that O-ring in between the links in order to hold lubrication and to protect the chain from water and from wearing out prematurely. So I attribute this chain on the bottom wearing out quicker to the fact that it's a standard metal to metal, link to link chain, your old school chain, the top one being an O-ring and lasting a lot longer. So this is an easy way to tell whether or not your chain is bad. Again, with those other two methods I showed you, the link seizing up, and then also the play side to side in the chain, those are tattletales also. So those are 3 tips to help you figure out whether or not your chain is bad. And I would suggest, if you have any question as to whether or not you've run your chain too long, go check that out. You know, there's a couple things that you could let slide as far as maintenance go on these bikes. But motor maintenance and chain maintenance, I mean, I cannot stress it enough how important they are to making sure that you are safe out there on the track or the trails. Alright guys, here we have the two chains lined up end to end. Again, the bottom one is a standard chain. And we're going to run down the line here and show you what it looks like at the end. Check that out. Almost half a length longer. So that just goes to show a real example of chain stretch and the amount of stretch that actually takes place. Kind of crazy. Also, get yourself a good chain lube. I personally use this chain guard by Maxima, the synthetic. I love it. I don't use the chain wax. I used to use the chain wax, but this is the actual clear chain guard. And I love it. I love it. It's good stuff. I will kick out another video, I think, on chain maintenance and care. But really, I just wanted to make this one to highlight the importance of making sure that you check your chain for proper wear and to make sure that you're not running a chain that's going to put you in danger. So anyways, if you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up, please subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.